Yeah, like drive smart. But people have forgotten how to do that a lot, I think.
Yeah.
You know, they're just...
Yeah, you would have seen on the opening lap that there's water all up the outside of Mountain Straight, and you're on slicks.
Well, you're not going to drive through it, are you? You're going to avoid it.
Yeah.
If you have to back off to avoid it, 161 laps, you got plenty of time. You know, you can make it up. You know, people say, you know, you don't win it in the first lap. You can lose it in the first lap, but in 100, when you got 161 of them, you're more likely to lose it than you are to win it. So. Back off, take it easy. Doesn't matter if you're last car over the top of the hill, but don't drive out in water that's that deep and think that something's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Go! And you're doing it, he's in! That's a massive crash. And it's happened immediately! This is amazing! Big shot, and it's lights out, and away we go!
And for you, Garry, with obviously the safety car stuff and the Bathurst thing, what do you think of the start of the race at the Bathurst? It was just crazy at the start. They were just they were literally like a sprint race in the first 5 minutes. Do you know what I mean? Like they should. Yeah. Do you agree with some of the comments? Do you agree with some of the legend of the sport, like yourself, saying, "Listen, slow down. It's like it's a 161 lap race."
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like drive smart. But people have forgotten how to do that a lot, I think.
Yeah.
You know, they're just.
Yeah, you would have seen on the opening lap that there's water all up the outside of Mountain Straight, and you're on slicks.
Well, you're not going to drive through it, are you? You're going to avoid it.
Yeah.
If you have to back off to avoid it, 161 laps, you got plenty of time. You know, you can make it up. You know, people say, you know, you don't win it in the first lap. You can lose it in the first lap, but in 100, when you got 161 of them, you're more likely to lose it than you are to win it. So. Back off, take it easy. Doesn't matter if you're last car over the top of the hill, but don't drive out in water that's that deep and think that something's not going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, it's just...
off subject for a bit, Garry, I got to know, how did you meet your wife? And obviously, Braydan, how did that all happen? How did Braydan get born? How did you meet your wife?
I met my wife because I had the workshop at Luddenham where I did a lot of performance cars and built a lot of engines and did all sorts of stuff. His mother had a four-cylinder Cortina, TC Cortina, and she come up there and wanted me to put a V8 in it as a road car.
Yeah, right.
And I said, no, I won't do it for you. You'll kill yourself in it.
Yep.
I'm not going to do it. Because she was doing a bit of drag racing and stuff in that car at Oran Park. So she was pretty much a rev head too. And so she hated me from that day.
Yeah.
Absolutely hated me because I wouldn't put a V8 in her Cortina. So, then we just seen each other from time to time and then ended up getting together. I talked her into coming up to Bathurst with me in 1990.
Yep.
And, she come up there and, as they say, the rest is basically history.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And back to you, Braydan. How did you meet your girlfriend?
Actually, through when I raced the S5000 at the Bend.
Yeah?
Yeah, she was up there and taking a real keen interest in race cars. And, like, from Speedway, I always let everyone come in, all the spectators, the whole weekend. They were all just, coming into our garage and having a look at the car, because you don't get that opportunity at many circuit racing events. Whereas at Speedway, at the end of the night, you all go down to the pits, you can jump in cars, you can have a look at them, talk to the drivers and all that sort of stuff, whereas circuit racing is just a closed area. You're lucky to get 10 metres away from a car. But that's one thing I've always made sure I've done with circuit racing, whether it's the TCR car or the S5000. I always invite people into the garage, do garage tours, walk them through the cars and let people sit in them and all sorts of stuff like that, because I know what it meant to me growing up as a race fan when I could go and get up close to a car and look at it. And even Bart Moore let me sit in his car a few times, and that all also helped with getting me to where I am now.
Yeah.
And but she was just another sort of race fan that was there on that weekend. She sat in the car, and then I got to know her and her family quite well, and from there on, we've been talking ever since. Yeah,
Yeah, right. And then just started dating from then on.
pretty much.
Yeah.
I've been helping her out a lot with her racing. I'll go to most of her races in Adelaide and coach her and help her out with what she does with her XL. And in turn, she comes to my races. She talks to me on the radio, helps us out with all sorts of other stuff. Racing-wise, she does all my social media stuff as well, which is good because that's one thing I don't have to do now.
That's definitely painful. I rely on Dan for this show. It's social media. It's Dan.
By the way, she's saying that, but she creates the content.
I'll create it, but I don't want to deal with the posting and being. I still can't get my head around TikTok. I'm too old. Oh my.
No, I'll create most of the stuff and then she can just post it and
Yep.
and reword it. I'll send her a draft and then she'll say, well, I'm changing this, and this. And then we'll post it. And I'm like, yep, okay, that's
Good
fine.
teamwork. Was she racing when you met her?
She was she was building a car and just starting. So we sort of helped her get on the right track with it.
Yep.
And yeah, been helping her ever since.
Great.
And Gary, for you, obviously, Cass has been helping Braydan with all his racing and social media and whatnot. Did your wife help you with any of your logistical stuff back when you were racing?
All the time. Yeah, she used to do all my sponsorship proposals, and she used to do all the heaps and heaps of stuff. She'd even work on the car, and do lots of stuff. She'd talk on the radio and things.
Yeah.
After refusing her a V8 engine, did you ever let her behind the wheel of one?
Yeah. She raced drags a lot.
Yep.
She won the burnouts at Canberra at the Summer Nats.
Oh, wow.
And she's still got a drag car, 700 horsepower V8 Falcon drag car sitting in the shed at home.
Yeah, right.
And but she raced production cars. She come the best she come was second in the championship in the Ford XR8. She raced the Magna the first year and then the XR8 the next year. So she's pretty good at driving.
That's really good, yeah.
Yeah.
She's always itching to kick me out of the seat and jump in and
I was
show
about to ask
me
that.
she can
Can she
better.
beat you, Braydan?
Well, I don't think she could, but she seems to think otherwise.
I've got to ask Braydan, obviously, I'm, as you know, a bit of a sprint car fan, and I found it interesting how you went from the sprint car to the S5000, and you said you wanted to use originally the S5000 to get over, which now makes sense, to Indy cars, right? Because your dad likes Indy cars.
Yep.
What was the comparison? Could you actually relate any sprint car racing to S5000 in any way, or not really?
Driving wise, I could, yeah. Surprisingly, yeah. They're both high aero. Well, the S5000 was higher aero than anything I've driven circuit racing wise, but yeah, the faster you drive them, the nicer they feel. If you drive a sprint car half-assed, it's going to feel terrible. And it was the same with the S5000. It always sort of felt terrible to me until I started to push it. But I just couldn't push it to the point where I needed to because it was, if I spun out, went off, knocked a corner out of it, it was going to cost more than I could afford.
Yeah.
So
the budget was in the back of your mind in the S5000?
Always. It was always in the back of my mind, and that was probably the main thing that held me back in that. It was cheaper to run than the TCR car, but if I crashed it, it was basically all over. So that was the biggest problem with that. But yeah, other than that, the sprint car and S5000, they did translate a little bit over. The main thing that I had to get used to was braking because we don't do that in Speedway. Yeah, we've got brakes and we use them to settle the car and when the track's rough and pull the car into the corner. But other than that, you mainly just use it to, after you've pulled it out of gear, you roll back into the pits and then you use it when you're pulling up to your pit bay. That's about it.
That's literally when you only use it.
Yeah.
What did you think, Gary, about the S5000 when you boys did it? Was that more your choice or Braydan's choice for that?
It was mine.
Your choice, okay.
Yeah. But I loved them because I loved Formula 5000, like I used to watch them back in the 70s and absolutely loved them. Brute power. You watch the start of a Formula 5000 race at Oran Park in the old days and there'd be 20-odd of them there smoking the tyres, shake the ground when they took off. Just astronomical, those things. I loved them, absolutely loved them. And the fact that there was Chev engines like Leyland engines, Gossi had a Ford engine, So they were pretty special cars. They were really good. And I mean, back in the days, everybody says that open wheelers have never been unique in Australia, but Formula 5000, you know, everything backed it up at Oran Park. Like Formula 5000s were what you went to watch, and then the production cars and the touring cars were sort of second rate to the Formula 5000. So, no, I loved them. But again, if we crashed it, you know, it's something that would take you more than 10 years to pay for, because the car itself was very expensive.
Yeah.
But they were reasonably cheap to run with the hard tyres and stuff. Like, great cars and great, but it was out of our league, and we realised, you know. I mean, I get criticised because a lot of people criticise me because he.
That's why on a podcast, Gary, we can get criticised all we want.
Yeah. But, you know, because he's raced so many different categories of cars.
Yeah.
But I did too, you know. Like, I raced trucks, I raced sports sedans, production cars. I raced a million different things. And I reckon that if you want to be a true champion, you've got to drive lots of different cars and be thrown in at the deep end all the time, which he has, you know. His first main circuit race that he ever had was in a S5000.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
That was my first CAMS race event.
Really?
Motorsport Australia race event, yeah.
Holy shit. Where was that at?
The Bend.
The Bend.
The Bend.
To make it even worse, it was the Bend.
And I was racing against like Thomas Randall, Anton De Pasquale, James Winslow.
Yeah. Bart was there too, wasn't he?
Wasn't Joey
No,
there?
he wasn't running that
No,
one.
he didn't run that one.
Joey was there?
John Martin. Joey wasn't there yet.
Okay.
Yep.
There wasn't too many cars there, but there was enough. Like James Golding, Tim Macro. They were all people. Well, James hadn't done a lot of open wheel stuff, but basically everybody in that whole time I raced there, I was sort of just a fish out of water. I probably didn't belong there with the guys that were racing those things. But it was still good to do it. I learned a lot out of it, and it has helped me with the TCR stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, you look at guys like Shane Van Gisbergen and Kyle Larson, they drive anything and they win in it.
Yeah.
And
Brian Clausen, who you looked up to.
Yeah. And he'd race midgets, non-wing sprint cars, Silver Crown, IndyCar, NASCAR, anything. Just jump in, drive it.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what I can get in different cars. It doesn't matter if it's an XL or a midget or a Formula 500 or a TCR car. I can jump in it and be close to the pace of what it needs to be
In the first couple of laps.
Yeah.
Because I remember at MARULAN the first day he ever drove on slicks, and I went in the passenger seat. He just did some laps. We were doing a hill climb or something there.
Yeah.
And I put these slicks on a Mazda MX-6, and like he'd driven the car a couple of times on radials, and then he jumped in it, and I was in the passenger seat. I was going to tell him how he could go and how he'd find the limit of the slicks. And just straight away just scared the hell out of me because he had the thing like sideways and just dancing in the first lap that he did, you know, got it just, I went back in and I said to his mother, I said, I just don't know how he found the limit of that car on slicks that fast.
Yeah.
Because he did. He just straight away.
Yeah.
Was right on the money in it, so.
Was that due to the midget stuff that you like, Braydan, though? Like, you like the Speedway. Is that because, do you feel when you're on the gas in the Speedway how the car tips out and likes the cushion?
Yeah.
Is that what relates to you, what your dad was saying, though?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
A lot of people just think Speedway's driving in a circle, hillbillies just driving in circles, but there is so much to it. And you put most professional circuit racers, you go and chuck them in a midget or a sprint car, and they have no idea what to do. And it's just so much to do with connecting your head to your foot and using throttle control and getting the feel of everything with how much throttle to use, how much steering lock you got to use. It's all there's so much to Speedway. It's such an intricate sort of profession, really. Like midgets and sprint cars are totally different to anything else you could do.
Yeah.
I 100% agree with that. As Dan took me out and watched it, as someone who's watching it, I said to Dan, I think like this is way more terrifying. You need a lot more skill, or no, you know, you need skill. I'm not going to knock anyone like doing circuit racing, but out there, I was just like, holy shit! When I'm watching the Speedway and the speed you're doing, that's why I've said we've had Mark Attard and a few others on here. I'm like, how do you focus? So I was like, because you're going so fast, it's a very special skill. And I was going to say to then take it out there into circuit would give you certain advantages.
Yeah.
Dan's done both. You've had that as well. But I think some of them, just, you know, some people will talk shit about the Speedway, but it's like, get out there and do it, because I think it's a different thing. And if people don't know, I think they need to get out there and even just watch it.
Yeah.
It's a different thing,
Yeah. I've raced at Warrnambool in the sprint car a bunch of times, and still there's a little crew viewing platform on the entry to turn 1. And I'd raced the sprint car there, and I'd never sort of been up to watch from that point. And I watched one race from up there, and I was blown away by the speed that you were entering turn 1. And I was like, is that how we're actually going in there? It's fast. It is so fast. And like when you're at Warrnambool and you're doing 10-second laps, and the lap record there's like a 9.99, which is, it's just on the money. Everything's blurry. It's crazy fast.
Yeah.
If it goes wrong, it's wrong.
Yeah. we were talking before when I was getting you guys on the podcast about Eastern Creek Speedway.
Yeah.
How fast that track is now.
Yeah.
And you were saying to me out at the track actually needs to slow down.
Yeah.
Get their drainage right and go again. Like they're having obviously the whole debacle and controversy around, you know, oh, this is wrong and that's wrong, and you know, the poor promoters are trying to fix the bloody track, and they just got given it by the government.
Yeah.
But then the government, which we know, they design the track themselves without any Speedway advice. Is that true?
Yeah, pretty much. It's a shame. It's great that we've got a brand new world-class Speedway, but yeah, it's got a few teething issues which will probably take a season or two to iron out, and once that's done, it'll be the best track in the country by far. But
and one of the best in the world.
Yeah, like to go to a Speedway and have all bitumen pit area is quite unusual, and it's a nice change for once, rather than rolling around in mud and clay and everything, especially if it rains a few days before an event.
Garry, we're talking about the new Speedway, but you were saying Liverpool Speedway was it Liverpool your first Speedway that you went to? Yeah. Did you ever go to the showground?
Yeah. I used to go to showground all the time.
Yeah. What do you think about back then, like Liverpool Speedway? I've seen videos and photos of it. We don't unfortunately have the internet working today, which is a bit of a shame.
Yeah.
But they were selling out non-stop, as you said, back in the day with the Speedway crowds.
Oh,
Garry.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd be parked 2 kilometres up the road and have to walk that far just to get in there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Huge crowds.
Yeah. And who was the promoters back then? We had we had the two brothers.
Yeah, Raymond's Mike.
Yeah.
And,
Mike and Steve Raymond.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they were promoting it back then, and then they went to supercars. Is that correct, to promote supercars? How did that actually all work?
Yeah, well, Mike Raymond was always on Channel 7 doing the telecasts. He was a really good commentator. So yeah, he used to do that.
Yeah. Do you have any favourite moments though of like Liverpool or anything like that when you were watching there when you were a youngster, or not really?
Oh, just heaps of favourite moments. Yeah, it was just so good. It was always action packed. You know, one group of cars is finished, well, they go off, and the next one come on. It's just bang, 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 full action. Really good nights racing. No safety cars. You know, great.
Yeah, and answer to both of you. Obviously, I've found out, because I obviously watch a lot of Speedway, as we've a lot mentioned on this podcast, but it's really hard, what I've found out from watching a lot of it, to actually get the whole of the timing right to finish the night on time. Yeah. It's literally like a race against time.
Yeah.
And obviously, Garry, you're saying back then they were just bang, bang, bang. It was all perfectly timed.
Yep.
It seems as Braydan and I's era that it seemed to like, oh yeah, we'll kind of get this car off the track, and it's kind of delayed. Is there any way that they can get that old energy back to be quick and fast, or is it just the way that the tracks are designed now that it takes a bit longer?
Some tracks are really good. Like we were at Murray Bridge a couple of weeks ago with Ashton Manif. We run his sprint car for him, and it was just time trials was finished. Come back in, he's on the phone to his parents saying, first race meeting done, first qualifying session done and dusted. It's really good. And then we're like, you need to get back in the car. They're calling us up for heat race 1 right now. And it was just all finished by like 9:15. It was a good night of racing. And a lot of the time it's sort of when they'll have they'll try and cram as many divisions into racing that night as possible. And that's where they just sort of end up biting off more than they can chew, and then they end up running behind time and cutting laps for other support categories and stuff like that. But it's definitely doable to get back to that. I just think run a few less categories and try and promote it a bit more to get more people there.
Yeah. So Gary, for you, obviously, Braydan, you've said you've helped your son heaps, but you obviously helped out young Manif there. So it was both of you helping out for his first sprint car race. Is that it? So you guys took him down there?
Yeah.
Right. How was that for an experience, you guys helping him out? Because the Manifs are heavily involved in racing like yourself.
Yeah.
They both do TCR, whatever, whatever they can get their hands on.
Yeah.
The old boy loves he was an ex-sprint car driver himself.
Yeah.
What was it like teaching young Ashton to get in a sprint car from a go-kart?
It was a bit of a challenge, but it was good because he listens. And I've basically just going down to Murray Bridge, I thought this is the best. Rather than going to Eastern Creek, you're going to have 28 to 30 cars there. It's going to be a bit of a hard night to do. Go down to Murray Bridge, 17 cars. You'll make the feature regardless on where you end up in points. I just basically ran him through everything, how to go about your first night of racing a sprint car, and he did an exceptional job. He tagged the wall a couple of times, but there was no harm in that. It was good it's just about building confidence with him now to sort of just get him up to speed. But it all comes with laps. He's 16, so he's got
a long way to go.
Got a long way to go, but he's good. It's
and he listens, which is the main thing.
Yeah.
So if they don't listen, you're wasting your time. You might as well not go with them, But he listens.
Yeah.
And he's learning. And he's doing the right thing, and he's going fast.
He spends a lot of time at our place working on his car, working on our cars.
Ashton does?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He's got a really good work ethic.
Well, to end this podcast, boys, I don't know if you've heard a few of the other podcasts, but I have a game at the end of the podcast. It is a quiz show. Now, Brooke,
Yes.
We've got a legend of the sport and a junior legend of the sport here. These boys, you've got to ask actually technically 6 questions. So it's the fast
the
6.
The 6th one's the bonus one we've got this time. It's the fast 5. So we've got a bonus one we threw in because we just came across an extra one there.
Yeah. But if you can get all 6 correct or 4 out of 6 correct, you get a good prize. If you get 0 out of 6, you get a shit prize. And trust me, I've got some weird prizes underneath the table. All right. It should be an easy game between the both of you because you're absolutely motorsports obsessed.
Yep.
So anyone can answer these 6 questions. The first one in the fast 5/6 is, Gary, you might be able to answer this one. Where was Bathurst legend Larry Perkins born?
Cowangi.
Yeah.
Cowangi.
Yeah.
His farm is at Cowangi or whatever it is, down on the way to bloody South Australia, down in the... We go past it every time we go to Murray Bridge.
Yeah, right. Oh, it says on the... Oh, Jesus.
You got half a name in there.
Oh, well, it said on the internet, Murrayville, Victoria.
Yeah, so it's basically like...
Yeah.
Not
is it
far
near South Australia or something?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All
We
right.
went through it the other day.
You know what?
I think you drove us all there, so just in that answer, so I think you get that one.
You get that one. You will get that one.
Yeah.
All right. Here's one for Braydan mainly. All right, because you've raced S5000. Who was the last back-to-back Gold Star champion?
Back to back.
It's a tough one. Will you be able to get this one?
They weren't on
Before
the
Joey Mawson.
It wasn't Tim Macro.
No, it wasn't.
It wasn't. Okay.
You got one more go. I'll give you one more go. I'll give you a hint. He raced supercars in the early 2000s.
Yeah, I know Simon Wills.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Very
Got it.
well done. That's 2 correct. We'll give you that one. We'll get the Murrayville. That actually, the first one I can't complain with because, Gary, you raced Larry yourself. So
A lot, yeah.
Yeah.
I had some fights with him too. But anyway.
The third question is, who holds the outright lap record around the V8 supercar layout of the Adelaide Parklands circuit? So the supercar layout of the Adelaide Parkland circuit, of the supercar layout, not the F1 circuit. Who do you reckon owns the outright lap record?
Is it recent? Like,
It's reasonably recent. Yep, it'd probably be mid 2000s again. Actually, no, late 2000s. There you go, like 2010s onwards. And he helped, I'll give you another hint. He helped engineer a champion recently.
Jason Bright?
No.
No.
Do you want to know?
Yeah.
Simon Hodge.
Aha.
Bonus question for that is, what team does Hodgie work for now?
BRM.
No.
No?
Works for 888 Racing. That's 2 questions. That was the 6.
Yep.
So, okay.
That's not 6. It's only
No, that's 4. Sorry, it's 4. So 2 out of 4. But that's
got 2
okay.
questions
You've got 2
left.
questions to go.
Yep.
All right. This is Brooke, who's done some research here. Brooke, you can throw in number 5.
All right. Which car manufacturer was banned from participating in the Australian Supercar Championship in the early 1990s?
Gary's going to think hard in this one. He knows it. It's in the back of his mind
In
here.
the early 1990s, which supercar brand?
Which car manufacturer was banned, from participating in the Supercar Championship? Who got the boot?
Yeah, who got the boot? And they kicked up a stink ever since. Like, they haven't come back. Oh, they did come back recently, then they disappeared again.
Not Nissan.
Yeah.
Yep, that's them.
Nissan.
There we go.
There we go.
Got-
First of all, the controversy over the Group A Nissan Skyline and stuff.
Yeah. Do you remember that time, Gary?
Oh, I remember it well.
You can go on to it. You can tell us about it, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, what happened back then, though?
Oh, well, the Skyline was just, again, like the Mazda Rotary. It just outclassed everything else. It was 4-wheel drive. It had heaps of grunt. And had Freddie Gibbo and co, like some of the best in the world engineering it. And it was just an absolute rocket. It was unbeatable.
Yeah. No one could touch it.
No.
Freddie Gibson was he was the 888 Racing back then, wasn't he?
No.
Freddie Gibson was he the main team back then, Fred Gibson Racing, or not really?
Well,
in the 1990s.
No, Freddie Gibson was the Gibson Racing, and he's a guru. He was smart,
Yeah.
Very smart.
Yeah.
Very smart operator.
Yeah.
Very smart operator.
Yeah. Who was his team in the 1990s? Do you remember or not? Was it Scaife and
Scaife.
Yeah, and Jim Richards.
Yeah, and Scaife and Richards, and then he started that other team up with Craig Lowndes with the green-eyed monster car later on.
Yeah.
With the AU.
Yeah. Well, that comes to question lucky number 6.
Yeah.
All right. Which team did Craig Lowndes drive for in the year 2000 before switching camps to Ford? Which team did he drive for before switching to the green-eyed monster?
It was with the racing team.
There we
Yeah,
go.
there we go. Nice easy one there.
So hang on,
Yeah.
let's mark up these questions.
There's
We've got-
only like 2 that they got out of the 6
yeah,
wrong.
so it's 4
I think they're good
out of
prizes.
6. It's a good prize.
Yes.
All right.
You had some tough questions in there.
All right, let me find something for you.
Hooley's behind his desk, everyone.
Yeah.
Squirreling away.
You know what? I'll give you some
He's got the Roses
the
chocolates.
Roses chocolates.
Blast from the past.
There you go. That should feed your family.
Thank you. Yeah.
No worries. Boys, I really appreciate you coming on. It was very hard to try and learn both of you at the same time, but I kind of got there in the end, and I would love to maybe do eventually like a round table or have you on another podcast in further seasons.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good.
That'd be good.
Cheers.
Thanks for having us on. It was cool to come up here, and my first podcast. I've been a long time listener of podcasts. I always listen to Open Red and Rip the Fence, the old USAC one, and Dinner with Races. Those sorts of ones. But it's cool to be on one now.
Cool. Thanks, Braydan. Thanks for coming on, Gary, by the way. I really appreciate it. Because I've got to see Dave more next week, so I'll make sure I tell you dropped in.
Want to hear more? Each week, we will share the hottest clips from our guest interviews on YouTube. But to hear the full episode, make sure to subscribe or follow us on your favourite podcast platform.